Well, it's the famous story of the wisdom of Solomon, and starts with Solomon. It says he sacrificed, giving thousands and thousands and thousands of sacrifices, and that's just hyperbole to kind of explain that he hadn't been sacrificing at Jerusalem yet. Solomon hadn't gotten fully rooted in Zion, the Mount Zion and Jerusalem as the holy spot. But so he'd go up to this ancient place, Gibeon, and sacrifice there. Thousands and thousands, it says. And at Gibeon, he is the one giving to God. But then in a dream, God asks, "What shall I give you, Solomon?" And I love that after this, it says, in a dream, God came to him. But then at verse 15, it says, "Then Solomon awoke." It had been a dream. And so it's kind of like he's in the double sense that God speaks in dreams. God works in mysterious ways, comes under the cloak of darkness. It had been a dream, Solomon realizes. Then Solomon returns and starts sacrificing at Jerusalem and hosting big feasts of worship and praise. Gets more rooted in the place that David wanted and God agreed to as the holy place for Israel, Jerusalem. Solomon's reply to God is the point of the story, if you ask me. He doesn't ask something for something that would be self-serving, but something that will help him help God's people. He had an honest conversation with God. He says, "I still feel too young." He wasn't a kid, but he says, "I am but a boy." And he says, "You've given me these people, and I don't know whether I'm coming or going. I don't even know what to say to these people about justice and righteousness and all this kind of stuff." So it's a very nice, a good model of prayer in that Solomon opens himself to God in honest conversation. Says, "Look, I don't know what I'm doing. So could you help me with that? I need wisdom." So he asks for wisdom. God is so pleased that he asks for something not self-serving, but something that will serve the people. God then promises also riches and honor, and at the end, long life if he keeps the covenants, which he didn't do. But anyway, God promised him, that's later in the story, promises him riches and honor, and all the stuff he didn't ask for, and gives him wisdom no other person before, and we are told no one after. And really, that's why this story was told. This story was told, to give proof and legitimacy to the descendants of Solomon. It wasn't written at the time of Solomon. It was written hundreds and hundreds of years later to say, no, these descendants are the justifiable kings of Judah. Because Solomon was the wisest, and there's never been one after even as wise. So it has to be the descendants of David, the descendants of Solomon. It's political redaction, we call it. Just want you to know. Then we get this ghastly account. Anybody get uncomfortable? Last week it was David, Bathsheba. Who wants to listen to that one? And this time it's about babies being cut in two on a baptism Sunday. I'm sorry, David. When I saw that it was coming up, I was just like, I don't know. But I went with Rita. Last week I said to Rita Saunders, if you don't want to read about that, David, Bathsheba, she said, no, it's in the Bible. We'll read it. So here it is. It's in the Bible. We'll read it. It's a ghastly story. It's a story we were told as kids. It's like in our coloring books at Sunday school and stuff. You know, and there's always the image of the baby being hung by the feet. Do you remember? And the sword and the feet, the baby. It's awful, the things we tell our children. But it's in the Bible. My first question was, why prostitutes? It says, prostitutes. Okay, big deal. Like, why have to be two prostitutes? Right? Couldn't figure that out. This is like another biblical demeaning of women or something. I don't know. But then I got reading and I listened to some scholars. It's always good to do. And they are suggesting that it's to show that Solomon's court was open to the lowest of lows. The absolute nobodies. People who shouldn't normally approach a king could come right up to this new king, Solomon, David's son. And they could walk right in, even prostitutes. Okay, I'll go with that one because it makes me feel a little bit better, but not too much better. Then the next question hanging in the story is, would he have really gone through with it? Right? Would he have really gone through with it? And then there's just the coldness of the other mother. Does that sound like a mother? Even a grieving mother? Some would say, well, it was the depth of her grief. She just didn't care anymore. Whatever. Cut them in half. Then we'll each share in nothing. Ouch. That doesn't sound like a mom. There's all how did the one mom know the other one rolled over on the baby. Like, it's just this awful story. So we're going to move on. It's apparently a story that proves Solomon's wisdom. I have a feeling, I didn't research this, that it's an ancient story, like an Aesop's fable of some sort, brought into Solomon's storyline. Because it just smacks of ancientness and not a story about one particular king. But we're going to leave it because, in my mind, the main pointer to wisdom in this story is his answer to God's question, what shall I give you? So it's actually Solomon kind of used wisdom to gain the wisdom he received. And I'll just tell you a little bit, the rest of the story. Reverend Deb and I were arguing about this yesterday in the back. We never stopped talking about you or the Bible. That's all we talk about. And it's either you or the Bible, one or the other. And sometimes both. And we got arguing about Solomon. He just totally messed up, eh? He married a whole bunch of women, and they weren't Israelites, and he created altars for their gods, right? Which I think was lovely, pluralistic, very 21st century. But not what God would want. And he taxed people. He built the temple, of course. He was the king who built the great temple. But he, robbed the people of Lebanon of most of their cedars. And he taxed the north like crazy. So that when he died, the kingdom actually split up and became two kingdoms again, and never were they united. So he was a mess. Not very wise. Okay. There you go. That's Solomon's story. We're not going to get back to it again this year. So I just thought I'd finish that up for you. Well, let's talk about wisdom. That's what I wanted to talk to you about this week. Nice, easy stuff. What is wisdom? Can you think of a minute of someone you think of as wise? Someone who's with us or gone before us. That, when you think about a wise person, now listen, don't all think about Reverend Dave. I understand that's what comes to mind. Think past that message brought to you by Reverend Dave. Just think about somebody else that you think was wise in your life. Does it come easy to mind? You think of some attributes of that person? You think of the characteristics. Why would you call that person wise? Maybe a mentor or a grandparent? Maybe someone young, like my friend Sam on the screen earlier, who I think is extremely wise. We say wise for her age. She's just wise in the world. Anything? What are those characteristics of wisdom? I was thinking about biblical wisdom. There's a whole tradition of biblical wisdom. It comes through wise women of the Bible, but also seen in Proverbs and Psalms and the book of Job. These are called the wisdom literature. And wisdom in the Bible has certain characteristics. It reminds us that wisdom in the Bible is a reminder that God's ethics, the ethics of God's world, are not one-dimensional. They're multidimensional and settled, not a settled pure form as we were taught by the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments. That God's ethics and sense of morality is deep and complex, and that we can't quite nail it all down like we think. Then also, wisdom in the Bible teaches us that knowing means yielding to a non-decoded mystery. So that to know means to give in to mystery. That God is mysterious. That God's ways are in many ways mysterious. That the ways of the world and creation are, just look at the stars. I've said this 100 times in my ministry. Just look at the stars. And we start to grow in wisdom because we understand we don't know everything. The Hindu scriptures, the Upanishads, say that the man who says he knows doesn't know. Those who know don't know. That's wisdom, the beginning of wisdom. And wisdom in the Bible teaches us that not all the data is in. In fact, it's not all about data in the first place. It's partly about information and collecting and observation. Wisdom is based on observation, for sure, in the Old Testament. It's based on observation. That's why we think sometimes our elders, people who are older, we think they grow in wisdom because they've observed a lot. Oh, I've seen a lot, kid. Right? Our elders have seen lots and observed the patterns and the ways of life. Think of Ecclesiastes 3. For everything there is a season, and there's this wisdom to it. But it's not a wisdom that is knowledge that's all wrapped up tight in a nice, tidy little bundle like we like to think in the Christian church. What we have forgotten is that the boundaries of the world and the knowledge and wisdom are God's to create, not ours. The church has often too much taught that our sense of boundaries, our sense of right and wrong, our understanding of morality and ethics, and the rules are the same as God's. Not true. That's not wisdom. Wisdom leaves room for God. That's why I think church school is so important. Church school is so important, and having kids here, and boy, we've got a lot of great kids these days. Lots of great stories. Lots of great questions. You ever been totally thrown off by a kid's question about God or religion? They're awesome. Little Sandy Johnston asked me once, Kim and Guy just wheeled him in. Sam's got a question for you, Reverend Dave. What was God standing on if there was nothing when the world was created? There's nothing before. What did God stand on? Ooh. To which I said, ask Reverend Carr. He's minister emeritus. Right? Like, that's great. That's like what's the sound of one hand clapping? Like, that's kind of stuff that just reeks of wisdom. Just breaks it open and makes me want to go home and just ponder everything. Start at the beginning all over again. That's wisdom. Molly Moores, my kid, Molly asked me once, what does God look like? Just as we're getting in the car, like just on our way somewhere. Yeah, Dad. Dad, what does God look like? Luckily, I said, love. I think God looks like love. And Molly said, you mean when we give people hugs? I'm like, thank you, Molly. Exactly like that. Got out of it quick, move on. But that's why kids are so important in a church environment, because they remember that the rules are really actually quite silly. So many of us, when I say to you, could you start a new relationship with God? Could you decide again who God is for you in your life? You would just stop dead for worry of the wrong thing about God. Right? About a sense of disloyalty to the person who taught you that God is this. Right? That's not wisdom. That's church. And rarely have they been seen together in the same company. Wisdom is perspective. In leadership work, we'd say it's going to the balcony and looking down at the dance floor. We often talk in leadership work about going up into the balcony for perspective and looking down at the dance floor, all the parties, who's dancing with whom, what's going on in your organization. What's the choir doing? What are the quilters up to? Hey? How about the Needle Arts Guild? What's going on with them? And then comes the dinner theater crew. And what's going on? And you watch all of the dancing on the dance floor. You get up on the balcony. That helps you with wisdom because you get perspective and some distance from an issue at hand. Wisdom is not rigidity. It's not rules. It's not clinging to stuff. And it's certainly not about polarities, which the Christian church loves. We love to know whether something's right or something's wrong. Does God love this or not? Is it godly or not? Playing cards, that's not godly. I was told somebody told me that in university. Playing cards is not godly. And you knew that person had under their pillow a list of everything they'd been told was godly and all the stuff that wasn't godly. Guess which list is longer? Usually the ungodly stuff. We love that stuff. It makes us feel safe and comfortable, but it isn't wisdom. It isn't wisdom. Polarities, this and that, right and wrong. It's not that simple. Wisdom is certainly not a club, and it's not surety, and it's not answers. That's why I love Mayfairiana Church. We're a church of journey, a church of questioning. We got lots of people in this congregation ask awesome questions, not just kids. Lots of questions. Just have to sit in one of our groups, one of our book groups or our study groups sometimes. We have these great questions because we're a church on a journey, not a church filled with answers. Because the answers can trip you up and they lack wisdom. Yesterday in Pittsburgh, there was a tragic example of religious certainty gone wrong. About how we can misplace and forget wisdom altogether, as 11 people were gunned down at worship in a synagogue in Pittsburgh. At worship in America. reminds us, first of all, to be thankful that we can be here free and worship freely without danger. But immediately, when I heard that it was Jewish people who were gunned down, I was reminded there's really only one reason for that, folks, still to this day. And that's because the Christian church taught people for too many thousands of years that the Jews were wrong. That's not wisdom. That's not what God calls us to. That's rules and answers and stuff we think we know, but don't know. As one rabbi said, and I thought it was so out of place at the time, rabbi who taught at my theological college said to the principal, when the principal said, "What do we have to do to get into better relationship?" And the rabbi just said, "Could you just stop killing us? That would be a really good first step." And in 1993, I thought, we're not killing Jews anymore. 2018. And it is absolutely based. Its roots are the teachings of the Christian church. No lie. Wisdom is so linked to God's grace. Because when we talk about God's grace, we understand we don't know what that looks like. And we don't think we deserve it. And it's big and it's broad and it's constant and it's wasteful. And love comes. And God's loving ways are wondrous and beyond us. And we cannot wrap our minds around it. Oh, that sounds like wisdom. Grace and wisdom seem to go hand in hand in the hearts of human beings. Because grace opens us up, cracks us open, and helps us move forward knowing we don't know what we think we know. The church is in desperate need of wisdom. And as people of faith, we are in desperate need of wisdom. And the world, every day we discover, the world is in desperate need of us as faithful people to dig deep and seek wisdom like never before. Open our hearts. Pray and pray and pray and pray for nothing but help and wisdom. Help and wisdom. And maybe God's ways will finally come into our life, and then we can bring them into the lives of others. May it be so. Amen.